What's up guys, my name is Julie and this is the Curated Curvy, where I bring you along for the journey as I attempt to create the curated wardrobe of my dreams with these two hands. Today I have for you a September mix video. So for the month of September, I was able to complete 7 garments successfully and 1 garment unsuccessfully. I am not a fan of lengthy intros, so without further ado, let us get into it. So if you've seen any of my former Friday Sews videos, then you know that this month I completed 2 skirts using the McCalls 8066 pattern. I will link that Friday Sews video up here for you if you are interested in going back and looking at what that week in my sewing life looks like. For these 2 skirts, the pattern consists of, I want to say, 3 pieces: a front waistband, a back waistband, and the skirt piece. Absolutely amazing. I love these skirts. They come together very quickly with very little time, very little effort, and very little skill set. One of the things about the skirt that is to be noted, however, is that the waistband does not fit correctly, and I posted these makes on the Facebook McCall Simplicity Sewing group, and I actually got a comment from someone who confirmed that same thought, that the waistbands are fitted funny. So if you are ever interested in sewing these, I would simply suggest that you take down the width of elastic maybe about 1.5 inches, and that should give you a better fitting garment. These skirts are absolutely gorgeous. They are very customizable, as the pattern is, in my opinion, a base pattern. It comes as a tiered skirt, and one of the views, which I want to say is view C, is just a long straight skirt. This version was view C, the long straight skirt. I had a lunch date with my husband, literally sewed this up at 10 o'clock the night before, and I was looking pretty cute for our date, I must say so myself. I'll pop a picture of in it with that. And then this skirt was just kind of based on like a Laura Ashley vibe, you know, the gingham, very long. It has a little ruffle on the bottom. The pattern doesn't call for the little ruffle, or it doesn't give instructions for the little ruffle, as the skirt is tiered, but I didn't want to bother with tiering the skirt because we all know that when you get into lots and lots of gathering, it can take quite some time. So I omitted the gathering, went for a cute little ruffle, and it was very successful. Also, you cannot tell, which is probably a good thing because it is gingham, but I added 1 pin tuck to the bottom of this. I'll try and get up close so you can see. So there's 1 pin tuck down here, but because I matched it up pretty well, you can't tell. If I do this skirt again, I'll try and add about 2 rows of pin tucks, and I will definitely do it in a fabric where you can see, because I think it's a really fun customizable detail, which again just speaks to the awesomeness of this pattern. It's a super base pattern that you can kind of do whatever you want to it. I mean, you put on the waistband and the waistband is fitted, and the skirt is up to you and your imagination. If I make this skirt again, I am definitely going to add pockets, because that would be a really easy thing. I didn't add pockets with the first one because this fabric is just, I think, too light in my opinion for a pocket. This would have been perfect for a pocket, but I was kind of rushing through this because it was an idea that got in my head and I just really wanted to get it done. So if I make this skirt again, which I will make this skirt again, I'll probably definitely add pockets to it. And yeah, we'll see what other iterations of this we get. All right, the next thing that I completed this month was this racerback tee. It's based off of a t-shirt that I picked up from Target that I tried on and I really liked, so I brought it home and I tried to like copy the pattern, and I was fairly successful. There are a few things about this pattern that need to be tweaked, like the side goes in a little bit too much, so you get a little bit of side boob action, which is definitely not ideal. But I mean, it's a super cute top. I'm gonna make it again, and I'm gonna make adjustments to the pattern, and we'll see how that turns out. So yeah, as you can see, because of the way, as I mentioned, the garment is cut, I went ahead and I added a shelf bra into this. It was really simple, as it is literally just the first half of the pattern piece. You go ahead and take off the seam allowance on the side so that it curves in a little bit more, and add a piece of elastic on the bottom. Wham bam, thank you ma'am. Really, like I said, in liking where this is going. It's not fully realized yet, but I'm going to continue to work on and tweak this pattern, and hopefully next month we'll have a more successful make of this that I can use as a layering piece to go under my jackets or my cardigans, because you know we're in fall and it's not really winter yet, and so we can still get away with a t-shirt cardigan situation, you know. All right, next thing that I want to show you that I made this month was 2 self-drafted dresses. These dresses are a square neckline with a giant puffy sleeve and a tiered skirt. This one was done from a bed sheet, and this was done from a linen viscose blend. I absolutely adore these dresses. I probably will make a few more because they're really simple, they're really easy to put together, and I feel like the payoff is really big for these. This dress, as I mentioned, was made from a thrifted bed sheet. spreadsheet, and I do have a video of the process of me making this dress, which I will link up there again for you. And this dress, as I mentioned, was a linen viscose blend, and I actually made this dress to complement a pair of 18th century stays that I made, which I'll show you right now. So these are the 18th century stays that I made using the Simplicity 8162 pattern. These took about 2 months to complete, and not because it was a very difficult pattern, but just because it is a very time-consuming process. First, you need to baste your layers together, and then you need to sew your channels, and then you need to add your boning, and then you need to do all the other things that it requires you to do, which gets to be a lot towards the end of the project. I am very, very satisfied with the final iteration of this garment. I do love them. I think they're really pretty. They fit very nicely. I made a very, very big mistake when I was sewing these, because I was watching a lot of different YouTube videos, because there are tons of people on YouTube who have sewn up this pattern and have really great tips and advice on how to achieve a very nice looking garment when you are all done. So because I was watching all of those videos, I neglected to properly read through the patterns, the pattern instruction pages, and that was all fine and dandy, except I missed one very critical step, and that was that in between the eyelets here, there is supposed to be a piece of boning on this side, so that when you wear it and the eyelets are pulling, it has that boning next to it to stop all of this from stretching out of place. And I know that that's necessary because I have already had to replace one of these eyelets just from taking it on and off over again in the making process. So I'm still gonna wear these. I think what I'm gonna do to remedy that situation is I'm gonna let out the back lacing a lot more, which would give me like more room to pull in the front, so that I'm not putting so much tension on these. And in my next pair, obviously I will fix that. As I mentioned, this pattern was pretty easy. It's just very time consuming, but I do think it is beginner friendly. I think be better than me and read the pattern instructions and rely on all of those great YouTube videos that are already out there about people sewing this pattern, because there are so many different modes of techniques that they use that I feel like really added to the final garment. Also, there's a lot of people who talk about fully boning these days. I didn't fully bone mine, but I did add in more boning channels than the pattern allotted for in certain areas. So like here, I think I have 3, whereas the pattern maybe calls for 1 or 2. The same thing, I think the pattern calls for like 1 or 2 here, and I added an extra. So like I said, they're not fully boned, but I did take opportunities to add in more pieces of boning where I could, just to create more structure within the garment. All right, the next thing that I completed in the month of September was this dress. This is McCall's 8036. It was from their spring release pattern, Pin Tuck Bonanza. This thing has so many pin tucks in it, which I feel like just really adds to, I don't know, the overall like oomph of the dress. I think that it gives it something that, I don't know, it otherwise wouldn't have, because on its face it's a very basic dress. It's just a shift dress with puffy sleeves, but when you add in all of these amazing pin tuck details, you just get something that's so sweet and that's so unique. One of the things that I changed about this pattern, or that I added to this pattern, was I added 2 pin tucks. I'll try and get all the way up there for you, along the hem of the garment, because when I tried on the dress it was too long and I wanted the dress to fit more as a mini dress. So I went ahead and I added those 2 pin tucks to get rid of the extra length on the bottom, and it mimics the pin tucks in the sleeve, which I feel like was a pretty good detail, because you do have these pin tucks in the sleeve which vary from the size of the pin tucks on the bib, and so I feel like the pin tucks on the bottom just kind of bring it all together and make the dress look like very cohesive. All right, and the last successful thing that I completed during the month of September was this dress. This is, I want to say, Vogue 1783. This was completed for the Minerva Sewn with a Vogue challenge that was run through the month of September, and I'll link my blog post for this dress down below. I was gifted this fabric from Minerva as an exchange for the I was gifted this fabric from Minerva in exchange for a blog post. I chose the most childlike print that I could find. I was very inspired by the Zimmermann Fall Winter collection that I want to say was like Fall Winter of 2021. They used a lot of like fantasy prints on very like feminine and sophisticated designs, and I just thought that was such a fun idea. So when I saw this fabric, I was like, that is absolutely perfect. I will take this very youthful fabric, because it literally looks like it's for a child's dress or like a baby's blanket, and I'll pair it with this button down collar, tailored looking shirt. I feel like it's just such a fun juxtaposition, and I'm really happy with how it came out. This pattern is definitely one of those patterns that I feel like is worth exploring, but for me personally would need a few iterations. The drop shoulder doesn't really suit me very well because I have very broad shoulders, and so when something slopes, excuse me, past my shoulder, it just makes me look kind of slouchy. Like, I don't know that it really works for me. Also, the sleeves are giant and I feel like they just feel unresolved. Like, I would want to maybe lengthen them and put some type of cuff on it just to give it like a puffy sleeve effect. And this pattern calls for a lot of ease, so I ended up having to take quite a bit out of it, particularly in the back seam, and I'll show you what that looks like right now if I can get this unbuttoned. Okay, so this is the center of the back, and as you can see, I've sewn a dart. I've sewn a dart down here just to take in all of this fabric because it was too much, and I left it in case I ever need to let it out again. But if I sew this again, then I would increase the seam allowance just a tad bit to get a better fit. But I really did like this project. This was another one that wasn't really difficult, but it was just time consuming because there are a lot of panels that go into this dress to give it that nice full pleated bottom. But I mean, it was fun, it was great. It was also my first time sewing a collar stand, and the instructions in this pattern for a collar stand I feel like were absolutely perfect. It came together beautifully, and I am so incredibly happy with how that collar looks. I mean, I think that just looks spectacular. After this, I felt like I could sew collars, and I went and sewed another collar from a McCall's pattern, and I will tell you now, the instructions were not as good and that collar does not look as good. But we press on. All right, and last we have my one unsuccessful make of the month, which was this cardigan. So when I made the racerback t-shirt that I showed you, I wanted a cardigan to go over it to kind of help with that whole side boob issue. And as you can see, I love a good like dress or shirt and matching cardi combination. That's just kind of my vibe. And so, like I said, I wanted a cardigan to go over it, and I made this, and this was a complete fail. First of all, I cut it too short. I wanted it cropped, but not this cropped. So that was an issue. And then usually what I do if I cut it too short, like as you can see with this one, or maybe you can't, is I'll add a band to the bottom just to give it some extra length to make up for the lack of length that it has already. But there wasn't enough fabric to do that with this. The next mistake I made was how I finished the neckline, or I sewed it down. So with the racerback tee, you can see how the neckline is finished. It's just this really interesting decorative stitch for my machine because for whatever reason, my twin needles are out to get me and they break every single time I put them in my machine. So when I am finishing the neckline, just to give it that nice professional finish, I used that stitch from my machine. I tried to mimic that stitch on this cardigan because they were supposed to be a set, but I didn't take into account that the amount of fabric that is in this versus the amount of fabric that would be in the neckband and the armbands of that t-shirt was very different, because that would be multiple layers of fabric as you're folding it over and then you're stitching it down. Whereas this is not. This is just simply 2 layers of fabric, so it buckled like nobody's business, and you can see a lot of that buckling there, and no matter how much I seam it or how much I press it, it just isn't coming out. And so I'm just gonna cut my losses with this one, and yeah, it's gonna be banished to the project bin where projects go to die. All right, peoples, and that is it for what I made in the month of September. What did you guys make in the month of September? If you made anything that you felt like was particularly interesting, or any patterns that you feel like should definitely be on my radar, go ahead and leave those in the comments below. I would love to check them out. That is it for this video, as I've already stated. Until next time, stay beautiful and make great things. Bye.